Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, brought to you by Music Ally, the show that both looks at the finances of the music industry, while also bringing you stories and comments about the past week in the pop business. He's Stuart Dredge. I'm Steve Lamack. If you want an easy guide to what's going on in the music industry and how it all works, then here we are, reunited after last week when I was away in the States for the South by Southwest Festival, of which more later. But let's start, as always, with a financial fact you can amaze your friends or colleagues with. Stuart's big number for this week. What is it, Stuart?
Okay, big number this week, with the caveat that it may be completely made up, is 300 million. And that is how many people reportedly watched the Netflix live stream this weekend of BTS's comeback concert.
Right.
300 million people watching, which this is in the Times and Telegraph, but it didn't have a source. Okay. So Netflix haven't confirmed it yet. But this was their comeback. They played a gig in South Korea and it was streamed live on Netflix. And I think it makes it probably the biggest live stream of all time. By distance.
And do you know how much Netflix paid for the privilege of having the rights to this?
I don't know how much, but I mean, I would think it's an enormous sum because they've also got the exclusive documentary about BTS coming back, and that goes live later this week. So right. It's a double-pronged Netflix sort of special.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing was, so the new album, Arirang, came out on Friday, probably one of the biggest releases of the year. And at the weekend, every single big streaming service, so Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon, they all posted on Instagram saying, it's broken all our records, like one after the other, sort of competing to show how big BTS are on their service.
Right. And I mean, do you think with this TV deal, do you think that's there will be more of these type of deals then to come in the future?
I think so. So Netflix also recently had the Harry Styles comeback gig. They didn't stream it live, but they kind of filmed it and put it on Netflix 2 days later. So they're doing more music stuff and they're doing more live stuff. Like, I don't know how closely you follow the world of pretend boxing matches.
Not very closely is the answer.
A couple of years ago, they had that influencer Jake Paul and fought Mike Tyson, and Netflix streamed that. And at the time, they said that fight, and I say fight, I mean, it was like, you know, when people men fight in pubs because they're drunk. Imagine if they were so drunk, they're just sleepy and lazily pouring at each other. It was like that. But apparently 108 million people watched that live, Netflix said at the time. So they're kind of getting into these big things, big things.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, you know, it is, it's a famous adage, isn't it, in the world of TV, that music doesn't really rate. And this has played out with, the termination of so many music shows in the end. Certainly during the 80s, we were better represented musically on TV in the 70s and 80s with the likes of the Old Grey Whistle Test and Revolver, all sorts of shows, even into the 90s with the White Room and various experiments in trying to bring music to TV, all of which obviously came to an end. But I wonder if this suggests then that there is an appetite for music on TV, or at least there is if the artist is a big enough draw. But I wonder if there'll be any knock-on effect of this sort of success, this level of success, when it comes to TV controllers and their thoughts around music.
Because there was a moment a few years ago, I think, when Netflix got really big into stand-up comedy. And they started commissioning all these specials. And as a comedian, a Netflix deal was a really good thing for you because you could make decent money from putting on.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if they do go on that. So far, it's done Harry Styles, they've done BTS. I wonder if they, like you say, are they got ambitions to do a music show, a performances show, or is it the biggest artist they can get?
Yeah, I suspect that it's the latter. Right, 3 talking points from the past week. The first one, Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien has revealed the band's new way of planning tours: 20 shows each year, no more, no less. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to tell you we're going to do 20 shows. Once those 20 have gone, they're gone.
That's a lot. Yeah, would you remember, like, this is what happened last year, but they didn't say it at the time, but they did 5, it was Madrid, wasn't it? Madrid, London, Copenhagen, I think, Berlin, and somewhere in Italy, Bologna, I think it was, 5 nights each. And so Ed was doing this interview about his new solo album, and the journalist, as they do, sort of as fast as was politely, turned the conversation around to Radiohead. And he was saying, every year we're going to do a different continent, and we'll do 20 shows a year. So they did Europe last year. They're not doing anything this year, he said, but then next year they probably will. And so it'll probably be maybe North America or Latin America or Asia. And I love the quote he said, we're not spring chickens anymore. We can't do those kind of endless tours. And they want to put their all into it. And it's interesting because it was also, he was talking about that we want to put our all into every performance. We really want to make it an amazing show. I mean, I wonder how festivals fit into that. Like, how breakable is a 20 shows rule if Glastonbury comes in and says, how about playing next year? And Radiohead are on North American year and they've done 20 shows already. Like, I hope there's some wiggle room there for them to play other things, one-offs.
Okay. Secondly, well, last week saw the launch of the annual Global Music Reports from the industry body IFPI, and it revealed how much money the industry made from recorded music last year. And that was how much?
It was $31.7 billion. So this is, like I say, it's recorded music. It's not live. It's not publishing. It's just the recordings bit. Mm-hmm. But it was up 6.4%, which is faster growth than the year before. And that's one of the stories we talked about, is that growth has been slowing down, but now it's speeding up again. And then here's another, I mean, it's just full of big numbers. I could do all these all at the beginning of the show, couldn't I? But I think there's now 837 million people using paid streaming subscriptions, which is up from 752 million the year before. So about 85 million new people on a paid streaming thing last year. Mm-hmm. And then vinyl was the other stat that jumped out. So vinyl sales grew by 13.7%. And it's the 19th year in a row they've grown. Mm. And, I keep seeing people saying, well, surely this vinyl boom is going to end sometime. It can't go on forever. But it's been 19 years now and it's still double-digit growth. Like, it's the real success story.
I mean, obviously, this is a global thing. I was thinking about this because, would I be right in thinking the increase, and because obviously, the figures are up, but are they up because, partly because of the expansion of music streaming or the increase in popularity of music streaming in emerging markets? So it's not necessarily, you could have countries which are plateauing, but the figure goes up around the world, not necessarily led by America or the traditional European markets. It's because other places in the world are catching up, and those are where the new listeners or streamers are coming from.
Yeah, definitely. And they had a launch event and they gave some of the stats out. And I think what was it? I can't remember how many countries they cover in this report, but all but one of them grew last year.
Okay.
And I think the one that didn't grow, it was probably more to do with currency fluctuations, because these things get quite
right.
But yeah, I think so. The big places, that's Europe, North America, Asia, they're growing still, but slower. Yeah. But yeah, it is like the Middle East, it's Latin America, Africa. So yeah, in that sense, it's exciting. And one of the things that came across there was, it's exciting. It's growth all over the place. It's not just one market or one kind of music. So the other thing, actually, China was the other thing that stood out from this. So China is now the fourth biggest recorded music market in the world. It overtook Germany last year. So you've got the US is top, biggest, Japan is second, and the UK is third. And Germany has always been fourth, and those were the kind of biggest four. Mm-hmm. But now China's there. It wasn't in the top 10 a decade ago, and now it's fourth, which says something else about how things are changing, because a decade ago, or maybe a bit longer, China was basically a music piracy sort of wasteland. Like, there was no money to be made in selling music there. Now it's the fourth biggest market in the world, and everyone's quite excited about that.
Here's a bit of good news. Back in Blighty, the British government has U-turned on its preferred plan for regulating the way AIs can be trained on music and other forms of art. So this is good news for the music industry, is it?
It is, yeah. So it's been bubbling for a while. The government sort of figuring out, like every other government, what do we do about AI and copyright? And if AI companies go, we just want to hoover up all the music, all the TV shows, all the books, and train our models. And you've got the industry saying, you need to ask permission and pay us. And this report came out last year where the government said, we've got a few options here, but here's our preferred option, which was to say, basically, they could train on everything unless the rights holder, so the labels in our case, had opted out and said, no, you can't train on music. And it was it reminded me of, like, I mean, I'm a parent of two children. There were times when I was parenting them when I'd be like, I found a great compromise. And everyone hated me because no one liked it. Because this option, I think the music industry hated this, saying it was too much power to the AI companies to let them train everything unless you opt out. And the AI companies didn't like it either, because they were like, this is too tight. We want looser rules. And essentially, the government put this report out last week saying, yeah, no one likes it. No one can agree what we should do either. So we're going back to square one. And they're going to try and figure it out. So it was one of those stories where like the government announces it's kind of is a U-turn, like the thing we wanted to do, we're not going to do. And the music industry went, hooray, this is great news. It's a victory for our campaign. Because I don't know if you remember, a bunch of famous musicians, Dua Lipa, all kinds of people came out and said, we think this is terrible, don't do it. It was quite an organised campaign. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that the government is going right back to the drawing board and saying, we don't know what to do yet. So what they eventually decide to do could still be bad for the music industry. It could still. Right. But yeah, there was a kind of a mini celebration. And actually at this IFPI event last week, the boss of the IFPI, Victoria Oakley, was asked about this. And she said she thinks that governments and politicians are coming round to the music industry's arguments. So for a while, they thought, oh, God, they're going to go towards the AI companies. They're going to say, yeah, train on whatever you want because AI is our future. And she said that they think they've been looking at what the music industry has been doing, for example, signing deals with AI companies and doing partnerships. And she reckons that is having an effect and that politicians are saying, okay, not so fast. Let's figure out a way to do something that doesn't hurt musicians. So there is a good little trend there for the industry, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't suddenly swing again in the future.
Okay. Any other business for this week? I mean, I was going to bring you, all the news from the South by Southwest Festival, but we had a bit of we had some problems getting to Austin last week. I've told this story a couple of times, but just in case you don't know, we were on a flight from the UK, taking off on Thursday at midday. 4 hours into the flight, the captain came on the intercom and said the plane is reporting a fault, because apparently the plane automatically reports its own faults. So it was reporting a fault back to Heathrow. And the captain was saying, even I don't know what it is, although I've been told it can't be fixed in Austin. Okay. And so we're turning the plane around and we're going back to Heathrow. So we got 4 hours to, I think we were just over Greenland when we did the U-turn and came back to Heathrow. And the rearranged flight wasn't until the following afternoon. So we ended up getting to Austin basically a day and a bit late. We arrived at the hotel where we were staying at 11:30 Austin time, which that's 4:30 in the morning UK time. Oh. So I mean, to be fair, I still managed to get out and see a couple of bands that night, but it meant going to bed something like 6:30 UK time, and I don't usually get jet lag going out. But this time, anyway, what it meant was we had a show to do on Monday, a live show for Six Music, which with the time difference meant going on air at 11 in the morning, Austin time. So really we only had Saturday and Sunday to prepare a whole 3-hour program. So in the end, I don't think I didn't get to one panel, because obviously South by Southwest during the day, there's lots of talk shops, workshops and panels where people are discussing all the things which we discuss here, AI's impact, the future of music. The only thing I did see was, because it was in the venue where we were broadcasting from, was a man who was obviously selling a new way of lighting a gig, and spent I was there for 15 minutes where he was just reeling off specs and showing how the lights worked in different, if you program them differently. So I didn't see anything. I didn't really get the impression. I'm not sure any real decisions were made or there was any huge news coming out of South by, but as I say, that's possibly because we were just running around like headless chickens, really. I did get to, amongst the people I spoke to, though, I spoke to Dev Sherlock, who I really like, he's one of the 8, I think there's a team of 8 music bookers who program the music part of South by Southwest. And he's a bit of an Anglophile, is Dev, so I like him a lot. But he was saying that, because, South by Southwest is partly there to spot trends in music. It is a sort of barometer of what's going on globally in music and trends in music. And, he was saying there was a huge representation of Latin artists in town, which reflects everything we've been saying. But he also, this is an interesting point which he made, which is that singing in a different language to English which used to be a barrier to having a hit, is now hardly makes any difference. It's not a barrier anymore to success. And if a big star on the global stage can now sing in a different language to English, and that's quite a shift to where we've been in the past. But from the UK perspective, the showcases went well. There was the British Music Embassy was set up again. This is this Department of Business and Trade get involved in trying to, obviously showcase the UK music industry in one place. So it's the hub for all things British, and there are showcase gigs in the afternoon and one in the evening, and they get people together, and it's a place where people can obviously network, and anyone who's interested in British music, will pop by at some points. But it was interesting. I would say, I've got no figures to back this up, but it did feel like there were slightly fewer delegates from the UK in attendance. One or two familiar faces I always see weren't there, and there's could be loads of reasons for this. One is the expense of getting to America now, and and applying for visas if you don't have a visa. So it's time consuming and it's expensive. But also those meetings that you went to America to do face to face are some of those people from America coming to South by Southwest in London, and therefore you don't have to go there because some of them are coming here. So that might be an explanation. But it was all right. As I say, more Latin music, a lot, actually weirdly talking about China as well, more music from Japan and China. There's the diversity, I think, is has increased. Also, the other thing, and this comes back to, remember we were saying no bands in the top 40 here in the UK. Yeah. Far less bands playing and a lot more solo artists, which is partly a musical trend, but partly, obviously, I think speaks volumes about the economics of being an artist in the present day. But
do you know, there was not much news in my inbox from South by this year. The one thing I did get was there was a showcase event of music being made by plants. There's a tech company who have a thing where they basically connect up various things to plants and it makes sounds. And I almost sent it to you thinking, well, you might have an hour on your hands to go and see some plants make music and see what it's like.
There is a lot of bonkers stuff out there. Can you imagine how many startup companies are in town? Because the other thing, obviously, this year was usually the film part of South by and the tech part of South by and the music leg of South by, they all run one after the other, whereas this year it's the first time they experimented with everyone being in town at the same time and all of them running concurrently. So it was quite because the lanyard, obviously, for the different parts of South by, they're all different colours. So you can work out the tech people by the colour of their lanyard. And when you're at a gig, you can easily identify someone in tech, not just by the way they're standing and nodding at the music or scratching their chins. It's because of I can see it's the lanyard. But anyway, it was interesting, I think. What's next? Oh, there was a report about the importance and influence of black music culture for the music industry. Can you tell us about that, because I missed this being away.
Yeah, well, this came from UK Music, the industry body, and it's a really big undertaking because they were trying to basically get to the bottom of, what out of all the value the music industry created in the last 30 years, how much of that derives from black music? And it's capital B, capital M, this report was making a definition of, it's not just music made by black musicians, it's what they've influenced, the genres they've kind of created. So everything from thinking about like Chuck Berry's influence on the Beatles, or Chicago House's role in UK rave, or even reggae and dub, their kind of intersection with punk. Like, it's such an interwoven thing that it's really hard to get to the bottom of it economically. But that's what they've done. So they report basically says 24.5 billion quid out of 30 billion, the total market in the last 30 years, is from black music. And I guess that the point of this report was not just to come up with a number, because I think if you, unless you're racist, people have a sense of this, a sense of how important black musicians and music has been. But the reports are saying, right, well, look, now we've got a figure, now we've kind of quantified the value. Let's talk about making sure that Black musicians now have opportunities to kind of do as well as they can. Let's make sure the industry is diverse. So it's kind of almost a call to action. It's saying, look, celebrate this, but also stuff needs to be fixed still to give people opportunity. So I thought it was a really good point. It wasn't a complaining report. It was a celebratory report, and also here are some things we need to do now to unlock further growth. So it's a really interesting report. If anyone go with this, it's on UK Music's website, I think, in their reports section. But it's well worth reading.
I tell you what, this is a bugbear of mine. But are you annoyed occasionally that Spotify doesn't really seem to understand you? Well, it's now testing a feature where you can give its algorithm maybe a shove in the right direction. As I say, it's constantly a bugbear of mine because it suggests music which clearly, patently, I'm not going to like. I mean, I know I'm a contrary bugger at the best of times, but the idea that the algorithm it's not well honed enough to do the job for me. So what can I now do to help?
Yeah, well, this is being tested, but I think it's a fascinating thing. So this is about something called taste profiles, and taste profiles in Spotify are what it thinks it understands about you.
Right.
Everyone has got a taste profile based on everything they've listened to, and so it's kind of testing this in New Zealand at the moment. But what normally happens is it starts in one market like that, and then it rolls out to the other English-speaking countries first. So I think we'll get it soon.
Right.
And it will show you what your taste profile is. It will tell you, here's what I think you are. And there's a screenshot they published showing someone's taste profile. So I'll read it out to you, and you can sort of see. So your music taste is a vibrant mix of contemporary pop sounds, with artists like Gracie Abrams and the K-pop group Illit frequently in rotation. You also gravitate towards the distinctive hip-hop influences of artists like Don Toliver, showing a preference for modern vocal-driven tracks. It's just quite weird when you read it out or read it, but everyone has got this paragraph that summarizes them in Spotify's eyes. Mine probably just says, Jesus Christ, Stuart, lay off the hairy rock, would you? So what's going to happen is you'll be able to go and see this in Spotify's app, see what your profile is. And then there'll be a little prompt box, like talking to an AI chatbot. There'll be a prompt box. And you can say, I want to hear more British young bands, or play me some more classic grime tracks, or I want to get my big beat nostalgia on, or whatever you want. You talk to it in natural language. You'll say, right, actually, I like this, not that. I don't know I assume you can be negative too. I assume you can say, never play me the Red Hot Chili Peppers ever again. And actually, I was doing a show with producer Joe yesterday, and we were talking about what if you could say, never play me AI generated music? Would it take that on board?
Yeah.
But basically, you're going to be able to talk to Spotify and tell it what it's got wrong about you, and tell it what you want more of, which genuinely feels like, if it works, a step forward. Because like you say, I think everyone's had those moments when why was this played to me? I've been using you for 10 years. Well, why don't you understand that I hate this? But yeah, I'd love to hear. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, we should, if it ever comes here, we should see what our taste profiles are and see how accurate you think they are.
Yeah, I'm all up for that. But given that Spotify thinks I'm 100 years old from my music test, and the stuff that it churns out that it thinks I might like, I'm not hopeful it'll be an entirely accurate profile of who I am. Right, finally, now, do you think, have we got a winner for when it comes to the big nostalgia tour? Because there's a big nostalgia tour coming your way, which, I mean, could be, this raises the bar somewhat. Tell us the lineup.
Doesn't it just? I got this in my inbox yesterday. It's Salt-n-Pepa,
yep,
TLC, and En Vogue, which I was going to say was the ultimate 90s nostalgia trip, but Salt-n-Pepa are 80s, aren't they? So
yeah.
But it's only North America for now. But my God, I'd go and see that here. Because having seen, I think En Vogue did Glastonbury last year, and they were great. I only saw it on TV. TLC did Glastonbury the year before. They were great. So
they're quite up for the package tour, aren't they? In terms of nostalgia in the States. I mean, I know we do it as well. I mean, all the time. I mean, I just before starting this, I noticed the Wonder stuff are going out on tour with Inspiral Carpet supporting, and that's sort of. But you need 3, I guess, to be a package tour, don't you? But I know in America, I know some British artists have teamed up in the States and are now replicating those tours where 2 big UK bands play together. They've done it in America because because obviously they were never as popular in the States as they were here in terms of profile and record sales and stuff. But if you put the two of them out together, there are enough Anglophiles and fans of both bands that when you put them together, they'll fill a decent sized venue. But now I think that idea is coming back this way. I'm alluding to a tour that I can't mention.
Oh man, would I like it?
Yes, you would. I think, yeah, and it's not being announced for I think another month yet. But okay. I'll tell you off air. But yeah, the package tour, big in the States.
I had an idea actually for a Britpop one. I had the Britpop bands that won't reunify to like Menswear, Elastica, and Long Pigs. Right. How much money, bribery, persuasion, arm twisting would that need?
Yeah.
But this Salt-n-Pepa TLC, there's another layer to this, which is like, we often talk about how artists of a certain era maybe didn't necessarily have the best time with their labels.
Mm-hmm.
So Salt-n-Pepa are currently suing Universal Music to try and get their masters back.
Right.
TLC famously stormed into their labels' offices saying, "Where's our money?" at the height of their fame. And I think En Vogue was sued by one label at one point because they said they'd broken a contract. And then there was some stuff about how little they were earning from their early albums. So all these three artists, they've all been in that era when contracts were, how should we put this, a little bit. And so now they're getting together, going out on the road, hopefully making some good money. Yeah. So that's the other thing here, I think. I think that's maybe the rationale of package tours is like get together, get some big crowds, play some big venues and make the money that maybe you possibly missed out on in the past.
God, that's going to be... Imagine the level of grumbling. Can you imagine? I mean, there's one... What are we going to talk about backstage before we go on? Well, here's something we all share. Our absolute hatred of how we were dealt with by the music industry. Let's have a chat about that for an hour or two. Can you imagine on the tour bus? This will take us from New York to LA. Then another thing.
Okay. But then the other thing here is like there's some crossover. So I think Salt-n-Pepa and En Vogue did What a Man, which is a cast iron banger. So you're like, right, of course they're going to play that together. So I like that aspect when there are groups that have collaborative, like even when, was it Mannix and Suede went off on tour together, didn't they?
Yeah.
I was thinking, I really hope they all get on together at the end to do something. Wouldn't that be fun? I don't know if they did.
Yeah. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. As ever, if you are enjoying the show, please do spread the word. You can also support us via Patreon. In fact, if you sign up to be a super fan, you get to join us for our weekly lock-in, where some of you get to stay behind after hours for more of this sort of stuff, for 15, 20 minutes of bonus material. This week, more from South by Southwest and Tina Turner versus ABBA, amongst other things. You can gain access to that by becoming a super fan of the show at patreon.com/thepriceofmusic. Alternatively, if you'd just like to get in touch with us, if you have any questions for us, send us an email. If there's anything you don't understand about how the industry works, or anything in terms of tips or advice we might be able to give you, drop us a line. Thank you to everyone who's been in touch already. We're working on a couple of more answers, aren't we, of questions that we've had. There's a specific one for next week, isn't there, that you've been researching?
Should I keep it secret or should I?
No, I think you can say, just as a teaser, just give us the top line. What is it?
Country music. And is it the fastest growing genre in the UK? Because that's something that is said often. And I have been actually going to some people who know the stats for country music in the UK. So we're going to be able to talk about that. So I'll be wearing my cowboy hat.
If only I'd brought one back from Austin. We'll do that amongst all the other stuff on next week's programme. In the meantime, it's the Price of Music Podcast at gmail.com if you'd like to get in touch. The Price of Music Podcast at gmail.com. Until next week. As I say, thank you very much for listening. Look after yourselves. Cheerio.